So it's a particularly talented team, but the general dynamic that we've seen is, I think, to be expected. Particularly in the tens of thousands of chips, smuggling is very possible. I obviously can't speak for either the last administration or the current one. I think this is a bipartisan thing, but I think the purpose of the export controls is to prevent China and other adversaries from getting to the hundreds of thousands of chips, the millions of chips, because that's really hard to smuggle and that's really hard to replace with Huawei chips. So there's this bifurcation in front of us, and we can have a big lead, or as you're suggesting, one of these other routes, things can be parity, and those are two very different futures for the world.
I guess my argument is, my question is, can you really have such a big lead when maybe you expected them to be this good, but I think a lot of people didn't. A lot of people, even in your industry, have been pretty blindsided by how good these new Chinese models are. And it leads me to wonder whether actually the half-life of export controls is not a lot shorter than you think. And even if you have export controls, the Chinese innovate around them and they come up with other ways to fix things. So the premise that you can, through export controls, ensure that the US is dominant in cutting-edge chip provision, do you want to base your entire policy on that?
So I actually believe this is possible. So first of all, this may or may not be something that works. This may or may not be something that's well implemented. But I do think that if it is well implemented, it still has a fairly good chance of working, and it is something that we should try because of this critical period, right? I think I maybe didn't come earlier in this interview, but in other interviews I've said 2026, 2027 is the critical window. And if you're ahead then, the models start getting better than humans at everything, including AI design, including making using AI to make better AI, including making AI to using AI to make all kinds of intelligence and defense technologies. So I think this is pretty important. And again, I don't believe the export controls were designed to fundamentally change the chip allocation in 2024 or even in the first half of 2025.